So I've been sick these last few days because I did forget to take one specific drug that I bring here every year that I've been in the legislature, and that is ivermectin.
Welcome back to Searchlight Report, a podcast from South Dakota Searchlight. I'm Megan O'Brien, and our podcast brings you up to date on policy and politics in the Mount Rushmore state. It's the fourth week of the South Dakota legislative session at the Capitol and Pier, where lawmakers are arguing about gun control, data centers, and lab-grown meat. But first, you just heard testimony from Representative Brandy Schaefbauer, a Republican from Aberdeen. She was pushing for approval of a bill that would relieve doctors and pharmacists of liability for prescribing or dispensing 2 drugs for off-label uses to treat and prevent COVID-19. One of the drugs, ivermectin, is FDA approved to treat blood parasites. Hydroxychloroquine is approved for malaria, lupus, and rheumatoid arthritis. Though they aren't approved for treating COVID-19, some doctors and patients say it's a worthy treatment, including U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Schaefbauer says she takes ivermectin throughout the legislative session to stay healthy. She says current law requires her to sign a liability waiver for the prescription.
How have I got my last fill of ivermectin? Well, I get on my phone, I go to the online pharmacy, I punch in my weight, I punch in my height, I punch in my age. I can click all the boxes, I can check, I agree, I accept all responsibility, I am not going to sue this pharmacy if I have an adverse reaction. Why should I, as a South Dakotan, have to go online, which is out of state, when this bill will bring us the ability to go to a pharmacy and get the same stuff?
Republican Representative Will Mortensen from Fort Pierre cast one of the 40 votes against the bill in the House. He spoke in response to Schaefbauer.
This is basically just a huge liability waiver bill, folks. The good representative from Brown County just said it. When she's making that decision and she has access to these drugs, she gets to click, I am willing to waive liability because I'm taking on the risk. What does this bill do? This is the people in this room waiving liability for every single person in this state. We are giving away the rights of our citizens. They should get to decide if they want to waive their liability. We shouldn't just be making a blanket waiver. We're not here to say, what does this stuff do? Does it work on a headache? Does it make your hair grow back? Does it make your eyebrows grow? I don't know what this stuff does. I've got friends who use it. I've got an uncle who uses it for almost everything. I'm not kidding you, almost everything. And so it's available. So what are we really doing here?
The bill ultimately failed with 28 votes in favor of it. Bills allowing guns in more places typically succeed in South Dakota, but the House Education Committee turned down 2 bills that would have loosened gun restrictions. The first would have allowed concealed carrying of pistols on college campuses without a permit. Right now, people who are 18 can carry with a restricted enhanced permit, and people 21 and older can carry with an enhanced permit. They have to take a handgun course and pass a criminal background check. Republican Representative Dylan Jordan of Clear Lake introduced the bill.
All this bill does is allow college students who are adults the same God-given right to defend themselves as they are allowed to practice almost anywhere else besides on campus. The reason I am carrying this bill is after many communications and talking with multiple college students, hear stories of all kinds of scary and sketchy situations where they wish they could have been able to practice their God-given right to defend themselves.
One opponent was Nathan Lucas. He's the executive director and CEO of the Board of Regents, which oversees the state's public universities. He's taken the handgun training course, which requires people to shoot dozens of rounds of live ammunition. Republican Representative Jim Halverson of Winner, a former highway patrol trooper, asked Lucas about his experience in that course.
Well, you've been through this course twice, you say, and you've been there when other people have been there doing the same thing. As they have started out, did they all hit the target right away?
Representative, no. There's a wide disparity on contact with the target as you work through the live fire training exercise with the different experiences and levels of understanding and exposure to firearms of individuals taking the course.
So if we take this enhanced permit away, will that automatically guarantee that these people that are carrying on campus that now have a permit or don't, they're automatically going to be really good shooters?
Representative, this is one person's opinion, but I would say no.
The committee voted 9-6 to defeat the bill. The second bill would have allowed employees 21 or older with an enhanced permit to carry or store a concealed pistol on school grounds after notifying local law enforcement. It also would have relieved school districts of liability for any damages or penalties resulting from the use of a firearm by such an employee. Opponents worried about the lack of notification for school officials. They also said the bill is redundant. There's already a Sentinel program that allows trained school employees to carry guns, and state law allows people with enhanced permits to carry a gun on school grounds as long as there's permission from a superintendent or another person who's in charge at the school. Before committee members could vote to reject the bill, Representative Jordan interjected with a motion to keep it alive, but no one seconded the motion.
Chair, can I have a comment, follow-up since a motion?
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a pretty simple bill, and I didn't realize I was in Minnesota's Education Committee, so I would just like to say that I'm disappointed.
Minnesota's legislature has far more Democrats than South Dakota's. Another committee member said Jordan's comment violated decorum rules. The chairwoman agreed and ruled Jordan out of order. 3 members approved of the bill. The other 12 voted against it.
South Dakota journalism is changing. Traditional, corporate-owned media outlets have reduced their staffs. Newspapers have lost pages and publication days. That's why South Dakota Searchlight shares its work with other outlets for free. We hope local outlets republish our statewide news and commentary, and we hope that frees them up to focus on their community. That means you might see our work at southdakotasearchlight.com, in your local paper, on the website of your local TV station, or even on the airwaves of your local radio station. All of that is possible with your support to our nonprofit mission. You can help at southdakotasearchlight.com/donate.
South Dakota doesn't have any data centers as massive as some of the larger ones popping up around the country. The huge buildings full of computer servers house data for artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency. A bill that would have given tech companies a tax break in the state failed at the committee level. Equipment and software purchases for data centers would have received a 50-year sales tax exemption. At least 37 states have some kind of tax exemption for data centers, according to data from the National Conference of State Legislatures. Supporters of the bill say it would remove some of the barriers keeping data centers from coming to the state. It lost on a 9-3 vote in a House committee. One of the votes against it came from House Speaker John Hanson, a Republican from Del Rapids who's running for governor.
South Dakota entrepreneurs have paid billions in sales taxes over the years, small businesses, large businesses, and we said that was fair. And others have come to South Dakota to seek the opportunity that we already provide because of our reputation for low taxes and low regulations. And I think if you look at over the last 5 years, if there's been anything that's attracted people to our state more than anything else, it's a reputation for freedom and the free market. It wasn't because they were coming here for special interest carve-outs or big giveaways.
Meanwhile, some lawmakers want a moratorium on data center construction and expansion. Democratic House Minority Leader Erin Healy of Sioux Falls has introduced one of those bills. She's concerned about how massive energy needs of data centers could affect electric rates for everyone. And she's also concerned about the amount of water needed for cooling.
And that would pause new large-scale data center permits for 1 year so the state can fully understand the impact of the electricity costs and how everything works. I think that is a really good solution to really get more public input. Our caucus will be pushing for a summer study on data centers because we think it's really important that we all over the state can have that public input and really understand what's happening here. So I think that this is a really good solution to put a pause on economic development, but not fully stop it.
When reporters asked Republican leaders about that moratorium bill, it sparked an argument during a press conference. Republican Senate Majority Leader Jim Melhoff of Pierre said he opposes moratoriums.
You don't want to fear-monger on stuff, and I think we've seen an awful lot of that about just about every economic development idea that's come along in the last few years. And I think that is creating a very chilling atmosphere in South Dakota. for developers and people who want to make investments and improve the economic situation in South Dakota are probably maybe looking elsewhere as a result of that. And with respect to a moratorium, I would not support that. I think we can do our work without putting up another artificial barrier to development.
Hansen responded, starting a tense exchange.
Well, I would say in response to that, characterizing the citizens' concerns as fear.
Mr. Speaker, I hope we don't have to have a debate on every issue. You've had your say on a lot of stuff. Now I've made one. Good. So yeah, I guess if these press conferences are going to be debates between the House and the Senate, and that's what they'll be, but I don't think that's necessary.
No, I'm simply stating that, we've seen how these things have played out over the years.
Hansen then brought up the proposed Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline. The company angered many landowners in eastern South Dakota with its allegedly aggressive tactics to access land. That included taking landowners to court.
You go back, the question was asked about the pipeline, and on the pipeline, we just talked about Jared Bosley and, his house being, entered into by these surveyors. Hundreds
Mr. Speaker, was there ever an arrest for that home invasion? I've heard that over and over again. I was wondering if there was ever an arrest for an alleged home invasion.
Yeah, no, thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it. So in that case, these people went into Jared's house, into his shop, onto his property. In that case, you had hundreds of South Dakota landowners who were sued. And then now, in this case, we're hearing, concerns about rate increases of upwards to 200+% for people's electric bills as a result of these data centers. So we're hearing real concerns from people, and that's the concerns that we're bringing to this legislative process, to have the debate in the committees and on the floors, and that's what that's all about.
There are other bills dealing with data centers. Some are focused on regulating the amount of power and water they use and the noise they make. One would bar state sales tax exemptions. To learn more about how data centers could impact South Dakota, check out The Data Center Divide, a 4-part series from Searchlight reporters Joshua Heyer and Mackenzie Huber, available to read now at southdakotasearchlight.com. Last week, the legislature approved a resolution asking South Dakotans to, quote, seek the Lord Most High for his healing presence and mercy, unquote. Some lawmakers worried about how it conflicted with the First Amendment. During a floor session in the House, Republican Rapid City Representative Phil Jensen said it was shocking there was even a debate over approving the resolution.
And I can't help but imagine that our founding fathers would be rolling over in their grave at the fact that we're even having to debate this. This should be a no-brainer. And I would venture to say the only ones that are going to be voting red up there are going to be Democrats. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative, that's out of order, Representative.
That was Speaker John Hansen ruling Jensen out of order for violating decorum rules. As it turned out, there were votes against the resolution from Democrats and Republicans in each chamber. House Republicans this week suspended Jensen for 2 weeks from their caucus. Those are closed-door meetings to discuss bills and legislative strategy. House Majority Leader Scott Odenbach, a Republican from Spearfish, told Searchlight that Republicans expressed outrage at Jensen's behavior, but Odenbach said later that he's not focused on the issue anymore.
Yeah, that issue's in the rearview mirror. I mean, as I said to anybody that asked, that what took place is what I will continue to refer to as the caucus consensus as the best way forward for everybody involved, and we've done that.
House Minority Leader Aaron Healy, a Democrat from Sioux Falls, told Searchlight the 2-week suspension wasn't enough of a penalty.
I would have preferred to see the House move forward with a motion to create a committee to discipline him officially. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet, but I do think that it still could, based off of his behavior.
Earlier during the legislative session, leaders changed Jensen's committee assignments. That was because of his protest against a seating chart change in the House Education Committee. Last year, leaders stripped Jensen of his vice chairmanship of the Education Committee. That was after he filed a bill to defund a school district over its bathroom policy toward transgender students. Last year, South Dakota lawmakers required lab-grown meat to be clearly labeled. This year, they've gone a step further with a bill to effectively ban lab-grown meat by defining it as an adulterated food. The bill has passed both chambers. If the bill gets the governor's signature, lab-grown meat would join a list of other foods described in the state law as filthy and putrid. Republican Senator Lauren Nelson of Yankton supported the bill in the Senate. She says lab-grown meat is unsafe, despite an approval from the FDA for some products.
Why would we invite this product into our state when South Dakota already produces wholesome, nutrient-rich, and safe meat, raised by our neighbors, supporting our rural communities, and serving as a cornerstone for our economy? We don't need lab-engineered substitutes to replace what we already do better than anyone else.
Lawmakers questioned whether the bill would hurt the free market and how the cattle industry would be impacted. Senator Brandon Whipp, a Republican from Huron, said the state should trust FDA approval. He also raised concerns about lawsuits, similar to ones happening in Florida and Texas.
The company doesn't just come to the FDA with a binder and say, look at the science we did. See how thick it is? Don't you just want to rubber stamp this? They peer review it. They vet it thoroughly. Scientists love proving other scientists wrong. That's like what they live for. This stuff was very heavily reviewed. I know that I don't know as much as an FDA panel or an FDA scientist knows. I'm smart enough to know that. I'm also smart enough to know, as many have mentioned, that our state is going to be inviting litigation that our small state with our low tax burden just cannot afford. And I know that these companies are just watering at the mouth to make an example out of us.
The bill passed the House easily. The vote was closer in the Senate, with 18 for and 16 against. In a press conference prior to the bill's final passage, Governor Larry Roden said he would put his trust in the free market.
If we start taking steps to ban products just because we don't like them that have been approved by the FDA and otherwise are totally legal, then we start setting a precedence that violates our own principles and the principles that have made South Dakota the freest state in the nation, I think.
If Roden vetoes the bill, lawmakers would need a 2/3 vote in each chamber to override him.
Hi, it's Moses Eshet, Product Associate at States Newsroom. At States Newsroom, we have more than 200 reporters and editors working for you. Our journalists are located in all 50 state capitals and Washington, D.C., providing state-focused news coverage about the issues that matter most to you and your community. You can support our work by going to statesnewsroom.com/subscribe. On a lighter note, Governor Larry Roden celebrated his 67th birthday this week. In a press conference, he recalled one of the earlier birthdays he celebrated during the session.
Back years ago, and the first year I was majority leader, I was on my way up to caucus and I was running late, and I run into my twin sister, Lori. And I stopped and I said, "What are you doing here?" She said, "Oh, I just came to visit." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to caucus. I'll catch you later." And I went to my caucus. So I think I'm the only twin in history that's forgot his sister's birthday. In fairness, I forgot it was mine.
That's all we have for this week on Searchlight Report. The podcast is based on reporting by South Dakota Searchlight's staff, editor Seth Tupper, senior reporter John Holt, and reporters Joshua Heyer, Mackenzie Huber, and me. I write the scripts and produce the audio, with editing by Seth Tupper. Audio this week came from recordings by South Dakota Searchlight and legislative live streams provided by South Dakota Public Broadcasting. South Dakota Searchlight is part of States Newsroom, the nation's largest nonprofit news organization. Until next time, I'm South Dakota Searchlight's Megan O'Brien with the Searchlight Report.